Welcome to Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes. We're back with a talk video. We've got ourselves the Profundity kit to break down, Synergies, developer insights, the usual stuff, and we will probably finish with the free-to-play gearing of my roster as we typically do. We'll see how I feel. With the Profundity, CG has slightly altered how they present this information. We're not getting two separate posts now. We're going to follow along this one in sequence, see how I think about it. We might return to just doing the kit first, because of the way the insights present some of the information, I think might detract from the conversation. Starting off though with the Synergies, we knew from Ravenclaw that Falcon, Outrider, and Y-Wing, they were going to be here. That was definitive. Seeing Phantom and Ghost is not a surprise, but it is clarifying. Hera being a requirement was a pretty good clue. Again, not definitive, but I think it's possible all of us will have to have Gear 11 to Gear 12 or Relic Phoenix by next year anyway, with the Phoenix being a part of the Ahsoka show. And I will not be surprised by a Phoenix or Rogue One Datacron set showing up around Andor or soon after. Usually these synergy suggestions we should be looking at pretty skeptically, but in this case, because of the Home One fleet in existence as well and a limited pool of ships, I do think this is what we are going to be using. The question though is, are there going to be additional ships forthcoming? And there's a little bit going on within the kit that I think that this fleet is unfinished. As we move into the body of the insights, we start getting some more information of why I'm saying there's a limited pool of ships that really are going to function well with the Profundity. Part of that is in the unique attributes where they highlight how Rebel cargo ships and Rebel crewless tanks are really being considered here. What is really starting to happen is the Raven's Claw is going to be a target lock functioning fleet. This is going to be an assist mechanic fleet. Further along in the insights, we get to strategy tips. This is something I wish CG wouldn't just give away. I'd like the community to figure this out through reading the kit, doing the testing. I think that's a little bit more fun. But instead, they just tell us how it's going to work. Special one, call a ship with multiple instances of damage. That's just saying use the Outrider. As we go through the kit analysis, it'll be clear why that's the case. Utilize a reinforcement order. They're just emphasizing use the Phantom, but there's only one ship that does that anyway. It kind of doesn't need to be said. In Special 2, they're just highlighting why it's an important ability, and I'll break it down why that's the case when we get there. The last thing is here why Admiral Raddus is required at such a high specific relic level. This, for me, like, obviously there's a monetization aspect of why they would do this, but I think there's a larger problem to requiring players to have the Executor when it was Piet at Relic 8 and now Raddus at Relic 9, because the consequence of this is there's a far smaller variety of potential fleets for us to go up against, because we all have a maxed out capital ship pilot. We're all going to have nearly maxed out Outriders. We're all going to have very high gear Falcons, and as for going for Jabba, our Hans are going to get even higher. It means that the potential to distinguish yourself from your opponent is minimized, and I think that is problematic. I don't want to say it, but hopefully there are additional relic levels that give us the opportunity to create that variance, but it's something that I think would be better off if CG wouldn't have these kinds of gates, because it would create more variety in our matchups. For the kit analysis, the basic ability, no turning back now. If used during the Profundity's turn, deal physical damage to the target enemy. Grant target ally a bonus turn. That's going to be important. If the target ally is a rebel, they gain 50% offense, increase download by 10%, ignore taunt, inflict buff immunity, and if the enemy already had buff immunity, stun them, which can't be evaded or resisted. The other mechanic is if the Profundity assists out of turn, deal physical damage and inflict daze, which is unresistible. That is going to be very RNG dependent. I don't think it's something we can rely on, but the daze is nice where if, for instance, going up against the Executor, ships that can double tap, so IG-2000 or Cad Bane, those are going to be ships that are going to be nice to land daze on or to prevent the assist call on the Razor Crest. The portion here about the target ally having a bonus turn, because there is a download mechanic on this fleet, I think paying attention to the cooldowns on a lot of these assist abilities is going to be valuable, because we're going to want to try to get to 100% as quickly as possible. So getting that bonus turn, maximizing the amount of assists by being aware of where the cooldowns on those assist call abilities is going to help move things along. With the first special, Unconventional Maneuver, cooldown of 4, CG again highlighted this in their strategy tips. This is increased download by 10%, cleanse debuffs from target ally, and they assist twice. That's important. And at the end of the turn, target enemy is inflicted with debuffs for each instance of physical and special damage they receive. And because of how these debuffs are inflicted, that is why the point about how the ship will assist twice is important. And that is also why it is so important that the Outrider be that ship, because the debuffs are going to depend on the number of times instances of damage occur. With the Outrider, it attacks 3 times when it is utilized. Or rather, it does 3 instances of damage. So that means just from selecting the Outrider, it's going to do 5+ instances of damage. With the Falcon being there, the Falcon is going to have a 50% chance to assist. So that's going to already get to 7+ instances of damage. And then the Y-Wing has a 35% chance, and as we get further down into the kit, the Profundity itself is going to have a chance to assist, which means getting to that 9+ instances of damage should be fairly reliable as long as you are calling the Outrider. And it also means that if you lose the Outrider, it is going to make this ability a whole lot less effective. And with all of that, it means if you're using the Executor to counter, you're going to want to take the Outrider out as soon as possible, because that mechanic is how all those progress on download is going to be happening. It's how all these debuffs are going to be happening. A lot of the threat is going to be happening with this ability here. With the second special, the Rebel fleet has arrived, and CG said this is going to be very desirable for us. With this ability, Dispel Advantage, Stealth, Tenacity up from all non-Rebel enemies. Each enemy that lost advantage is inflicted with Vulnerable. Each enemy that lost Stealth this way is inflicted with Marked. Each enemy that lost Tenacity up is inflicted with Tenacity down. These debuffs can't be dispelled, evaded, or resisted. Rebel allies recover 25% health and gain roll-based bonuses. And these roll-based bonuses, I do want to highlight a little bit, because there right now is no healer ship. We do have support ships. They're going to gain stealth. Attackers will gain offense up, and crewless tanks will gain taunt and 4 stacks of reinforced hull. But the fact that we don't have any healer ships right now makes me wonder again if there's a possibility here for the Rogue One shuttle to enter the game. This is a conversation that I've been having on Discord and in the comments, where I think this, especially with the timing of Andor, is a very likely ship that we could be seeing in the future. And one of the places I see it slotting in is filling in this need for a healer ship that doesn't exist. And the healer ability that doesn't really exist on many ships right now, other than like Plo Koon does it, a couple others do it, but they don't have the healer tag. What we see in the rest of this fleet and with this ability here is the amount of survivability and recovery that is happening with this fleet. Outrider offers a little bit too. By adding additional ships, that could be augmented and make this fleet even more of a nuisance. And there's room where that could also happen on the Executor if they ever get Dengar's punishing one. There's room to elevate both of these fleets, create separation from players who don't have them, while also maintaining the competitive balance between the Profundity and the Executor. Interesting thing that could happen. Now, a little bit more importantly is mechanically, and why this ability is going to be desirable for us is because of how this is going to be able to mark a stealth enemy, which means you're going to want to time the use of this for when the Xanadu Blood is stealth, so you can immediately mark it. That ship is pretty easy to take out once it's no longer stealthed, and if you have it marked, from there you can get to a pretty quick advantage with the Profundity over the Executor. Plus, when you get that reinforced hull over onto the Y-Wing, that ship is going to become more of a nuisance to take out than it already is. It's also another spot where I wonder maybe there's room for additional crewless tanks like the B-Wing, because I don't really think the Y-Wing needs reinforced hull, but maybe other Rebel tanks could be added which might benefit more from that kind of mechanic. With the unique I Say We Fight, this ability here is why the Profundity is going to be able to counter the Executor on offense, and why the Executor is going to be able to counter the Profundity on offense. There's a lot here, so as we go through this, we might have to stop a few times. Profundity gains 10 speed for each dark side enemy until the end of its first turn, and all Rebel cargo ships gain 4 stacks of reinforced hull, and ally crewless tanks taunt for 1 turn. So right at the beginning, we see that going up against the Executor or the Chimera, the Profundity is going to have a big speed boost itself, which is going to allow it to get started ahead of the enemy. That's one of the advantages. The reinforced hull, that is only applying to the cargo ships, so that means the Y-Wing's not going to get reinforced hull to start, but it can get the reinforced hull from the second special. Reinforced hull, though, is going to make the Outrider and the Falcon function a little bit more like the Razor Crest does, delay how long it takes to take it out. Now, ally Rebel ships are going to gain the following benefits. Cargo ships, immune to crits. Crewless tanks, immune to crits, gain 35% defense and max health. Taunt whenever a Rebel ally is inflicted with a debuff, and immune to buff immunity while taunting. So it's going to be a very persistent and annoying taunt. You're going to have to find ways around it. That does mean the Razor Crest is going to need to find a way to... You're going to need to land breach somewhere so that the Razor Crest can be marking another ship, preferably the Outrider. The support cargo ships, this is going to deal bonus true damage equal to 8% of their max health when they deal physical or special damage. That just means the Outrider. All of the other cargo ships, Falcon, Ghost, Phantom, they're all attackers. So the Outrider is going to deal bonus true damage equal to 8% of their max health. The next chunk here is about shield disruption. Rebel allies score critical hits against enemies inflicted with shield disruption. That's going to be landed by the Y-Wing, and that first special, if you're calling the Outrider and you get the correct RNG to get those 9 instances of damage. Whenever a Rebel ally scores a crit, there's a 20% chance to call another Rebel ally to assist, including the capital ship. With the capital ship, again, you get days. There might be a reason to do that, but it's so random that 20% chance is low enough where it's not something I don't anticipate playing around, but maybe I'll feel differently about that in testing. And whenever a Rebel ally assists, download is increased by 1%. Now 1% though is why I said in the basic ability you want to be doing the bonus turn to ships that have their cooldowns at a point where you can be maximizing those assist calls. You want to speed this up along as fast as possible. Whenever a rebel ally evades an attack or resists a debuff, they recover 20% health and protection. Whenever an enemy is defeated, rebel allies recover 20% health and protection. Whenever an enemy unit is defeated, rebel allies recover 20% health and protection. Whenever an enemy is summoned, all rebel allies gain protection up, and whenever an enemy reinforces, rebel allies gain 150% defense for 1 turn. This portion here is why this fleet is going to be a nuisance to take out. There's a ton of recovery here, there's a ton of survivability, and this portion here is why the Executor is not going to be able to defeat it on defense, because the AI is going to mess this up. The AI is going to use some important abilities while the 150% defense is increased for that 1 turn. It's going to waste assist call ability. It's going to waste the entry of the slave 1. It's going to make it a lot harder. Us players using it on offense, we're going to be able to be patient enough to use the Executor in a way where its damage is not being negated by this portion of the unique. Last portion here negates the Chimera and the TIE Interceptor. If an enemy TIE Advance is deployed, increase cooldowns of Call Reinforcement, which cancels out the bonus of the TIE Interceptor when it is as a reinforcement in TIE Advance is part of the starting unit. If the Profundity uses Call Reinforcement on consecutive turns, which means you call in the Phantom, call out the next ship, there's no other ships that can do that. So that's why I said earlier in the strategy tips, you didn't really need to point it out. Anyway, you call in the Phantom, dispel all buffs on all enemies, and dispel all debuffs on all allies. Allies and enemies are immune to turn meter manipulation. Reinforcement bonus is just critical chance up for 2 turns. That's still going to be desirable. With the ultimate ability, Admiral, we have the plans. This requires 100% download progress. With the animation, we see that the enemy capital ship is going to go race after the Tantive 4 as it escapes. This is limit once per battle. Remove the enemy capital ship. AoE dispel. AoE inflict enemies with speed down and stranded. Profundity is going to gain plans acquired granted ability. Rebel allies gain a damage immunity and recover 100% health and protection. And the ability can't be evaded or resisted, requires 100% download progress. Stranded, take damage equal to 35% of its max health. This damage can't defeat a ship and can't recover health or protection. With the granted ability plans acquired, has a cooldown of 4 and starts on cooldown. All allies gain advantage, crit damage up, defense penetration, offense up for 2 turns, 4 turn cooldown. So even though you're going to have damage immunity after you start the ultimate ability, you're going to be on a clock where you have an opportunity, you've recovered the health, you can try and take out the other ships. They have a chance to try and survive and possibly still win until this granted ability comes in as almost a second ultimate where all these buffs are added, which should allow you to finish off the fleet if you haven't already. And now for our wrap up, as we do on this channel, the free-to-play gearing of my roster. This is the gearing I did on August 15th, and we're also going to do a little extra gearing I did the next day on August 16th. With this, we finished the farm on Sortie. I did have a head start on Sortie because I had a little auto-click mistake. I thought I was doing Bronzium. I don't even understand how it happened. It started pulling Sortie packs. We got a 4th star on Admiral Radis. He's at 5 stars now. We'll get the Profundity 2nd time around. finished the Executor. I think I needed like 30 more shards to take it to 7-star. I was in no rush. My fleet shard is inactive enough where I was still able to climb into the top 5 on a daily basis. That was good enough for me. But taking up the rest of these abilities. And I was waiting for the sign-in to do the rest of the gearing that I did. That's why the rest of this happens on August 16th. I wanted to wait for the Grand Arena sign-up so that I could have the Inquisitors at Gear 11 for another week so I could showcase some testing, but I don't even think I ended up doing it. So for the next week, I wanted to be able to take the Inquisitors up to Gear 12. And there was also the Assault Battle was going on, so I wanted to wait for the lock-in, sign up, and then after lock-in, take them up to Gear 12 so I could do the next tier of the Assault Battle. I was able to do Challenge Tier 1 with Gear 11. I'd have to double check, but Gear 11 was enough for Challenge Tier 1. It did take forever though. And Gear 12 was not enough for Challenge Tier 2. And that was all I added to it. It was just a small addition. Other than the farm on Admiratus, I'm ready for the Profundity. I've got all of the gear and resources hoarded up for both Profundity and Grand Inquisitor, and I'm moving on to a Galactic Legend soon after. Going to try and get some more videos output soon. We've been slowly adding some additional gear assessments. I might do those in a different way. I think I'm going to try a YouTube short. Again, the YouTube algorithm's really not a fan of those videos that are less than 8 minutes, so we might find a way to lengthen those a little bit because we're getting a high click-through rate, but we're not really getting a lot of views on them because of how the algorithm just isn't putting them in front of a lot of people's faces. So I do want people to find the content as the YouTube will allow people to. But thank you for watching. Be safe out there, everyone, and be excellent to each other. This is still Plays Galaxy of Heroes.